More than 1 million people have now been infected with the coronavirus around the world. 50,000 are dead. One country which so far has had a relatively low infection rate is India, with a population of 1.3 billion. The country has registered only 2,500 cases. In a video message broadcast on Friday, Prime Minister Narendra Modi tried to bolster morale in the country by urging people to light candles. Last week, the country introduced a nationwide lockdown to stem the spread of the virus. DW's Nimisha Jaiswal joins us from the Indian capital. Welcome, Nimisha. Did Mr. Modi's speech include any concrete public health protection measures?
Well, Phil, the short answer is no. The Prime Minister spoke at length about the need for Indians not to get despondent in isolation and for Indians to continue to believe that despite the distance, they are united in this fight against the coronavirus. But soon after the speech, already criticism flooding social media in India and asking questions about why have there been no concrete measures announced, and even if not measures, why is there not more information about India's status, about India's fight? What is happening about testing? What is happening about protective equipment? What is happening about all those driven to hunger because of this lockdown? So while the Prime Minister encouraged Indians to stay strong in their resolve to isolate, there is also heavy criticism of his message.
Well, the country's 3-week lockdown has been hard for millions of migrant workers. What's their situation more than a week in?
Well, Phil, initially thousands fled cities like New Delhi to get home because they do not have food to eat in the city anymore, because they do not have work to do anymore. They depend heavily on daily wages. But more than a week in, activists tell us that those left behind may be people who had stocked up food for maybe 7 days or 10 days, but now they will re-emerge onto the streets now that they're running out of supplies, despite the fact that the police is taking measures to ensure that these people stay in. And sometimes these are harsh measures. There's physical violence, there's attacks with sticks. So we went out to find out what exactly people are doing, how exactly migrants who have been left behind in the city now that the exodus has slowed down to a trickle, how exactly are these people managing to survive?
Waiting, sometimes for hours at end. This is what every day looks like now for these daily wage workers. Social distancing boxes seem meaningless in the face of hunger. At the end of this particular wait, 2 oranges. None of these men are originally from Delhi. They migrated to the capital from villages in neighboring states, looking to earn a livelihood. Some work in small restaurants, others at construction sites. Every meal depends on the day's earnings. But with businesses closed for India's 3-week lockdown, these earnings and the meals have dried up.
We tried to go home, but all the bus stations were closed. The police told us to stay here. There are no medical services available here, and we are not allowed to leave. We will have to call an ambulance or ask the police to let us go.
Yet, with food at hand, these men are the lucky ones.
The government is providing food at hundreds of shelters like this one, yet the demand far outstrips the supply. In addition, many are physically unable to reach these centers because of the lockdown.
This is where civil society is stepping in. Gunj, an NGO that has worked on disaster relief during floods and earthquakes, is now adapting to a different challenge, to a disaster that cannot be seen, but that is everywhere. This time, far fewer aid workers are being called in to maintain social distancing, and they're taking up tasks they've never had before. Relief work, especially in the midst of a lockdown, is the government's responsibility. But workers here believe there is no time to assign blame. Lives are at stake, and not just because of the coronavirus.
The government was not prepared. They are making an effort, but there's a gap. We all need to work together. This is now an issue of survival.
But even as these groups work tirelessly to provide protection and food to the city's poorest, the fight for survival promises to be a long one. Crowding together for shelter, social distancing is a luxury these men cannot afford. But for now, at least there is food to eat.
Back to Nimisha Jaiswal. Nimisha, what are India's next steps then in fighting the coronavirus?
Well, Phil, the lockdown officially ends on April 15th. The government is insisting so far that it will not be extended, but the Prime Minister just yesterday spoke to leaders across the country about how to stagger the re-emergence of the population in India. But we, of course, also need to hear more about ramping up testing, isolation and treatment, and of course, the fact that India is not just dealing with a health crisis, but a crisis of hunger as well.
Good talking to you. Thank you for that. Nimisha Jaiswal in Delhi. OK, we'll take a look now at some more of the latest coronavirus developments. More than a million infections have been confirmed globally, according to Johns Hopkins University. The United States currently has the most active cases. A cruise ship that was stranded at sea with COVID-19 patients on board has been allowed to dock in Florida. The Zaandam had been turned away by South American countries. And here in Germany, more than 1,000 people have died from COVID-19. There are nearly 80,000 confirmed cases.